Hello and welcome to episode number 49 of Behind the Impact. I'm your host, Jeremy Brown, and this episode, Taylor Amerman, the Director of Global Social Impact at CDW, joins the show. Taylor, welcome to Behind the Impact.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I feel like I know so much about CDW because you've been on the Impact Deconstructed series. You participated in the virtual summit last year. So there are some incredible things that you are working on at CDW, and I do believe practitioners will get a lot of value out of that. But before we get into that good stuff, what I would like to do is to go back in time and learn more about your career and how you got into social impact. Can you give me that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of my first internships in college was at a local nonprofit organization called the James Graham Brown Cancer Center. Completely unpaid, but they had one of the best Derby galas here in Kentucky. And I was like, I want to be a part of that and I want to help. And what can I do? And it was an amazing summer experience to learn about fundraising and accounting, frankly, from big events and what can we do. But they are such a great organization that they were able to connect me with funders in our community here in Louisville, Kentucky. So throughout that summer, I got to have lunches or coffees with the Humana Foundation, the Young Browns Foundation, Brown Foreman, the Community Foundation of Louisville. And so they were just a great advocate for me as a person, knowing that I wanted to learn more about this space of philanthropy. I also worked for the YMCA. I went to school at the University of Kentucky. So I worked for the YMCA there. And so had those nonprofit experiences as a foundation. When I was in college, though, it was right during the financial crisis. So I really wanted a strong academic background. And so I have a degree in accounting, which is pretty surprising in this space. And I have a minor in community leadership and development, which was out of the College of Agriculture. So I've always had both. I've had this community side of me and engagement and, how can I help, as well as a strong business background. And during my time at the University of Kentucky, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Belfast in Northern Ireland. And I actually learned they had classes in corporate social responsibility. I did not have that opportunity for my school. And I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. How can I do this? But they were master's level courses. And so I started looking into how could I go to the UK for a graduate degree. And right after I graduated from undergrad, I did go and get my master's in corporate social responsibility from the University of Nottingham. So it was an amazing year, got to live abroad, full scholarship to go. And it was also a bonus that it was during the 2012 Olympics that were occurring in London. So great, great experience.
I have to ask because you're literally the first practitioner I've ever spoken to that has a degree in accounting.
I'll believe it.
So I have to ask, do you do you find using your skills and expertise and knowledge in accounting in your current capacity?
I use it. It was a strong business foundation. It gave me the vocabulary to use as I influence. So yes, I need to work with our controller and the entire finance team at CDW. And yes, do I use that fact sometimes to fit in, let them know that I am aware, I know how to read financial statements. Yes. But you know what my favorite way to use it in this space is through my own personal board service. I love serving on the finance committee of nonprofit organizations to help them. Because normally they'd say, oh, be on the development committee and help make connections. And that's great. I do that too. But I love serving on a finance committee because it's that part of my brain that I love, and I don't always get to use it every day.
And with such a strong background in the nonprofit sector, at what point did you realize that you wanted to take your experience and knowledge from the nonprofit sector and translate that over to the corporate sector?
Yes, again through internships. So fortunate to have that opportunity. So through those coffees and lunches that summer, Where I ended up the following summer was Brown Forman. And so, again, based here in Louisville, Kentucky. And they own beverage alcohol brands like Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester. And I wasn't personally drawn to that product, but they had a phenomenal reputation in this local community. Phenomenal, both as a great place to work, high employee engagement, but they were involved with many nonprofit organizations, very philanthropic. And they are a for profit public company, but the Brown family was still very involved, and the family was also philanthropic. So, from the beginning, 150 years ago, they have been a staple in this community. So, I had the mindset of, okay, maybe there's not strong alignment to beverage alcohol for me, but I want to go and learn. This is a great place to learn about how does a top tier company do this type of work in a local community and global too. So even though it was local, huge global company. Jack Daniels is served in almost every country in the world. And so I did 2 years of an internship there and then went to get my master's. And then I actually had a really short stint at UPS down in Atlanta. And it was not a good fit culturally for me. And so I think I learned that too. And then had the opportunity to come back to Brown Forman. And I was there for about 8 years before I came to CDW.
At Brown Forman, what made them such a philanthropic company?
So truly, it was part of the culture. Like one thing that I loved is they didn't have a volunteer policy. It was true empowerment to volunteer as much as you can and get out in the local community. They gave a significant amount of money, almost $10 million a year, and for that size company is quite healthy. Many leaders served on boards and were involved in there, and then they were just visible. So you just saw Brown Forman's name, logo throughout the community. And so significant respect that was built over decades.
And so you were there for quite some time. What was your role when you joined?
So it evolved a couple times, just like normal social impact careers. But I started off, they had community relations, which was the typical philanthropy work, but then they also had a CSR team that was focused on environmental sustainability and alcohol responsibility. So, about a year or two in, they said, congratulations, you are now leading alcohol responsibility. I said, okay, all right, I'm not the expert in any way, but let's go. And as you can imagine, though, that was a really hard job at a company that is trying to sell as much alcohol as they possibly can while doing it responsibly. And I said, all right, if I have to care about this, I got to get other people to care about this. And let's make it fun, engaging, personal, and not this no, don't drive drunk, don't drink. It can't be a list of no's. It has to be positive, it has to be empowering, and it has to be human. Because I don't want a job that's a tick the box. I don't want just legal compliance. That's boring. But how can we truly impact lives through this work? And so, huge challenge. Still hard to believe that was my job for a long time. But I would say the other thing I loved about it was these challenges like drunk driving, underage, addiction, they were not a Jack Daniels problem, right? So we were able to collaborate with the industry significantly. And how can we push the whole industry forward in this work and truly collaborate and truly work together for the greater good? And that was really exciting, is that it was a place where we didn't need to be competitive, we needed to be collaborative.
When you reflect on those 8 years at that company, what are some of the lessons that you learned about being a philanthropic company, and just being a good corporate citizen in general?
Yeah, great question. um I think number one is authenticity, right? Is I have to be authentic in the work, and the company needs to be authentic. Because the first thing you can do, when I told you I led alcohol responsibility, is roll your eyes. Oh, sure. I'm sure an alcohol company cares about that. But then through authentic demonstrations and partnerships, and frankly, tackling really hard issues like respecting the choice not to drink. I love using the statistic that 30% of American adults do not drink alcohol and talking about that, right? They worked at the company, they attended our events, and we have to be a welcoming and inclusive company for that demographic, right? So making it real, making it tangible, and using data behind it. I also really liked tackling the topic of addiction. And that is one that I will say has had ripple effects and impacted my entire life that I never anticipated. I am not in recovery, but the education I learned and now how it has, from family members, people in my circles, that education and understanding of addiction has really benefited me. But having, we called it the elephant in the room series at the company, talking about hard things and wrestling with it, I really appreciated it. And and then I think all of this work is about people. So the thing I'm most proud about is we created a campaign called Pause, PAUSE, and we just wanted people to pause. So pause before you have another drink. Should I have some water? Pause before you grab your car keys. Should I take an Uber? And again, back to that personal choice and empowerment instead of a list of don't or rules, but just getting people to be mindful about their choices was really powerful.
And I imagine having that ability to have those hard conversations has probably served you well in your current role, just because of all the different things that happen in corporate impact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always the more people at the table with different perspectives, and how can you listen to understand, always being curious and not being afraid. I think that has benefited me. Let's try some things. Okay, it might get a little deep, and that's okay, but let's try and we'll learn from it and we'll improve next time. That has really served me well. And then just caring. Again, it's not about a campaign for me, it's not about the marketing. It's how are we impacting a human life in the best way we can?
And after Brown Foreman, was that when you then went over to CDW?
Yes, but there was a little experience in the middle. I was getting kind of restless and I said, hey, I don't have an MBA. Let's do this. And so I did an executive MBA through Duke University while working at Brown Foreman. And halfway through, it became 2020 and COVID hit. So it was a very interesting pivot experience. But after completing my executive MBA is when I started to leverage that and looking for the next level of opportunity and came to CDW.
Well, let's talk about CDW. Can you tell me a little bit about the company and what the company does?
Yeah, so headquartered in Chicago, we have around 15,000 employees globally. And we are a large service provider of IT solutions. So I think of us as in the middle of the tech industry. So we work with for profit companies like HP, Lenovo, Apple, Cisco, and we resell those products to thousands of customers, to businesses, to nonprofits, hospitals, schools, governments. And the benefit is it's economies of scale. We're around Fortune 200. So you get best pricing, but it's all together. So you don't have to have these individual contracts with Microsoft and HP. It's all through one seller, and they can really look at your tech stack holistically. So it's, yes, hardware and software, but the big push now is around managed services and the ongoing support of tech needs.
So 15,000 employees. How large is your team?
There are three of us with a social impact title. So myself, Brandon in Chicago, and Ellie in the UK. And then we do have a dedicated resource in Canada, but she is part of the marketing team overall and just kind of helps us amplify the work.
And so a team of three, which I still feel like is unique in this space because most of the time practitioners are a team of one. So the fact that you have two other individuals on the team makes you a unicorn, I feel like, in corporate impact. What does impact look like at CDW today?
So very fortunate and A plus team. I am very proud to work with those individuals. So we have two distinct strategies for social impact. The first is more of the corporate side, and that is through our philanthropy, and that is all focused on digital opportunity, whether that's access to the technology itself. So we work with some nonprofits that receive devices, refurbish them, and then distribute them in local communities. We do a lot around education. So working with the Perscalis and IC Stars, in Power, for example, and a lot of upskilling in tech. Of course, now the hot topic is AI. And so how are we supporting AI education in that space? And then tied to that is workforce development and how can we make CDW reflective of the world that we live in, but also the tech industry as a whole. So many of those organizations provide strong pipelines of talent into the tech industry. So those are our grants. We give around $1 million a year just in grants. So small budget. That's a theme today I'm going to talk about, but small budget for a Fortune 200 company. And I do want to add on that piece is we do practice trust-based philanthropy principles. So we give unrestricted funding to organizations and we use a donor advised fund as our vehicle for giving. So again, when our average is around $25,000 as a grant, I trust you as an organization. But we want the mission of the organization to be aligned with our digital opportunity strategy, not just a program, not just, hey, I want to build a new computer lab. That's great. But with our current level of funding, it's all around mission alignment to the strategy. So, where that is very focused, the employee engagement strategy is total opposite, and that is all around empowerment and supporting our coworkers in the causes that matter most to them. And we do that in a few ways. The first is our matching gifts program, which is $2,000 a year per employee. So, very proud of that program. Folks love it. And that is where we all get the request, can you support? Can you support? And it's easy to say that is the equitable way that the company supports what you care about. Everyone can get that and has access to it. The second program is our local impact program. And that is where we give $1,000 grants to support group volunteerism. So we encourage our coworkers to come together and we want them to invite those for-profit partners like the Okta or Lenovo's, that people that they work with from there, as well as customers. Right. Go volunteer with the company that you're working with closely in their local community. And CDW will give $1,000 for each event that they do together. So we're very proud of that. It's only been around about a year and a half, and we're seeing significant adoption of that program. What I also like about it is it's open to everyone. So instead of just giving regional dollars in Florida or New York, anyone can access that. The finance team can access it, the marketing team, a business resource group, and that has been a great way to encourage our coworkers. And the alignment to business is after COVID, the company was really encouraging in-person interactions. And so through volunteerism, we know that is a great way to do that and build those relationships with our partners. Then the third way that we are empowering coworkers is just through general volunteerism. And now that we have flexible time off, our coworkers are encouraged to use that time how they would like, which includes volunteering.
There are a couple of topics that I want to dive into based off of what you just said, but I do want to go back to trust-based philanthropy. Not every company that does grants has a trust-based philanthropy, I guess, approach. I'm curious, why trust-based for CDW?
So it starts with humility. Okay. And I do not have all the answers. And that is a tie back to Brown Foreman. Never a big drinker, not really into alcohol, not in recovery. I have no lived experience to know what that's like, right? But I trust you, nonprofit organization, that you are serving your community in the best way that you know how. And now at CDW, don't ask me to code. Don't, I don't live in Chicago, right? I trust you to serve that local community in the best way. I also am highly aware that nonprofit organizations do not just run programs, right? They need to pay the electric bill, they need to pay the accountant. And how can our funding reduce burdens for them, time, right? We don't ask for specific reporting requirements over $25,000. Um, but also, how can it just help you operate as a well run organization first and foremost? And so, what we do use is we use their annual reports. So instead of saying CDW's $25,000 accomplished XYZ, we say we are proud to partner with XYZ organization and what they accomplished in that year. So we give them the credit. We don't take the credit for it. And we just use what they're already using for their impact metrics. We don't ask them to calculate or report something in addition to what they're already doing.
I just want to highlight something that you mentioned. Nonprofits don't just run programs. They have they have bills that they have to pay too. And so when it comes to grants that companies do give out, they need to take that into account as well.
That's right. 100%. So we ask for high level alignment, right? So again, we care about alignment to strategy, but just explain, I seriously say one paragraph alignment of how this funding helps support our digital opportunity strategy. I also tell them if our application takes you more than 15 minutes, you've done something wrong, right? I care about the relationship and the ongoing relationship that we have and how are we supporting each other throughout the year, how are we communicating, we're attending their events, they're attending our events, they bring me volunteer opportunities, we get a leader to serve or be on a committee. It's that long-term value that we are creating. It's not the grant application, it's not the $25,000. It is what are we doing together and how are we understanding each other and what we're trying to accomplish and how can I support you? And I think the other value, since I don't have a lot of money to give, I give my time. So I give like free consulting advice all the time around working with corporations and how to reach out, make connections. I do connections all the time, but how can I help them build their capacity for free?
One thing that I really love about CDW's local impact program, you mentioned being able to invite partners as well as customers to volunteer, with the employees. I feel like that is something that practitioners don't realize that that's a powerful relationship building tool. I mean, we always talk about volunteering as an employee engagement tool, but it can also be used as a customer kind of relationship building tool as well.
Absolutely. So remember, CDW is built of salespeople, but they are selling hundreds of brands, hundreds of brands. And so, what those for profit companies want is they want to be top of mind for a seller so that when they talk to a customer, they're recommending those products, right? And so, they want their time and attention, and volunteering together is highly valuable. Time with sellers is our biggest currency. And this is a emotional connection. It's fun, it's engaging. You get out of the office for a little bit. So it is highly valuable. What's also interesting is we are not the only ones who financially support this at times. So, for example, we love our friends at Okta, and they have a similar program where they give $2,500 to the organization. So, if CDW and Okta volunteer together for the same event, that nonprofit's getting $3,500. And so, by them having that, that also encourages our team to promote them internally. So, there's a lot of win wins when we work together.
Yeah, I feel like volunteering it's such a versatile way of engaging employees, engaging customers, partners. It's one of those activities that yes, you're giving back to a nonprofit and you're supporting that nonprofit and obviously that cause, but there's so many other benefits that come with volunteering.
Totally. And I want to emphasize we don't say you can only be from this list of 10 organizations. So it's another way for those employees or coworkers that are really passionate, maybe about their local food bank. Okay, they don't get a CDW grant, but that's another way for them to show their passion for a cause and an organization that they care about.
Through the program, or and not just the program, are there other ways that your team works with other departments to help them accomplish their goals? Obviously, the volunteering side helps with HR, probably specifically in terms of employee engagement. But in obviously, if the sales team is involved in volunteering, they get some benefit. But are there other initiatives, other ways that you're helping other departments?
Yeah, I'll mention another one related to sales, for example. Um, we just support RFPs a lot. So those customers want to know what we are doing and how are we supporting their local communities too. So that's important. But by spending time with specific sellers, we are able to understand their needs. So, for example, we have a very strong relationship with the city of Chicago. They are a customer of ours, as well as Chicago Public Schools, another large customer of CDW's. Well, so many of our partners have intersection with them, right? And so they are the sellers that sell to the city of Chicago or Chicago Public Schools are highly engaged with us. They love to volunteer. They love to show what they are doing in a specific community authentically and genuinely. But then they also get some strong stories back to their customer. Um, so it's some win-win. So if we are doing something large with a junior achievement, for example, that's a great one, or Big Brothers Big Sisters, ones that have deep roots in the city of Chicago, they're one of the first people we go to about the volunteer opportunity because we know they will deeply care and want to be present.
Specifically, the local impact program. Can you talk more about some of the successes that have come out of that program? And I know there are a couple because we've had conversations in terms of the employee engagement side of things. But can you talk a little bit more about that?
One of my favorite things that we do is we do ask folks to recap them on our intranet. And they put the pictures, they put the stories. And I love how that inspires others. It makes it tangible, it makes it real. It's a human talking about it, not just Taylor and Brandon and the social impact team, but it's creating those ripple effects that and it's showing that anyone can do this. And here's the team, and here's the photos, here's what we accomplished. And I love that people will reference, oh, I saw that they did that. I'd like to, or that made me think that I could do this. And that's what we want. We want the ripples.
How do you achieve that?
Honestly, I think the number one thing is being good communicators, being accessible. So we care a lot about being responsive. We're here to listen. We take meetings, we present at team meetings, and we are visible and we are there to help. We're not pushing agendas. We're not, we're a team player and we are able to tailor our messages based on who we're talking to. Whether that's coworkers in the finance team and they're supporting their finance week of service, business resource group, or a sales team, our team morphs and is able to support that coworker and how they need to be supported. So, we're a magnet. People want to be a part of our team. I think my favorite compliment is, "Are you hiring?" My favorite compliment, right? People want to be a part of something great. And I think that's what I'm most proud of how we are creating those ripples across the company.
You and I have had conversations in the past around this concept of driving business value through impact. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on what do you believe needs to be done in this field to get to a level of sustainability to where executives take corporate impact seriously and see it as an integral part of how their businesses operate versus just an add-on, kind of nice to have if we eventually go public.
Yes. So I think the first is where the work is situated. So if I were kind of building the team from scratch, it has to be integrated into strategy. And the team needs to sit in who is leading strategy. So whether that's chief strategy officer, COO, CEO, I think that is really strong. In addition, sometimes though, it's all about the individual that you report to. And I would pick who is the most passionate person who is going to advocate over that. So that might be the head of legal. If they are the most involved, they get it, that's where I want to be. I want to be under a strong leader who is willing to advocate and go with me and sees the vision and isn't the tick box leader. So I think that really matters. I also think that we have to change what metrics matter. We have to do. And I think I think individuals are more and more concerned about their own data in the world and what do they want to share with their corporation and what do they not want to do that. So, for example, one trend that I think is going in this space is the adoption of individual donor advised funds. And so, similar to a health savings account, I think it will become a benefit that many companies offer to their employees. But with that does come less data because that is their account that they get to give out of. And that's okay. It's okay that you don't have all of that. You might have more aggregate data than in the past, but it's fine because it's better for the employee and they feel that. And that way too, I also think there will be more just seed funding to employees to give as opposed to a match. Because in order to do a match, the employee has to donate. And so I think how can we be more equitable of the company just supporting and giving money to employees to give without the requirement of the match? And then same on volunteerism. I really think it's just going to become more and more time off, and employees are going to be more. They don't always want to share where they're volunteering, and I think that should be accepted, and that's okay. And it's far more about the sentiment that employees feel around this work than an exact number of hours, exact number of organizations, but just part of engagement questions.
What if the impact function sits under a leader that isn't really a champion of impact and maybe might be more aloof, and just it could be that maybe you were under HR and then something happened, reorg happened, and then now you sit under, I don't know, legal, let's just say, and that leader just doesn't they don't care per se, right? How should a practitioner navigate those waters?
So my first thing is they may not care corporate wise, right? But what do they care about personally? I really try to understand them as a person. Do they have kids? Do they have pets? Maybe where they went to school, maybe they care a lot about education and supporting their alma mater. But how can I make it tangible and personal to them as best as I can? And that they understand the importance of supporting coworkers at an individual level. I also love the strategy of helping them get on a board because I think once they understand and they get it and it is personal, they want to advocate for resources. Because well, they don't want the matching gift to stop now. They use the matching gift program, right? And so how can we create those natural ties and making things tangible? I also try to figure out who do they listen to, who is influencing them as a leader, and how can I meet with their circles to help influence, not in like a takeover way or something, but who do they value? That do they value the CFO talking to them about this, for example? And I think that's kind of my approach. But how am I going to navigate them?
What do you think practitioners need to do now and going forward to get to the point where especially executives look at corporate impact as a key partner, a key function to have in their businesses versus going back to the whole kind of add-on nice to have component?
So, in addition to being very good at social impact and having some data behind it, so just to emphasize how we do that, we do two surveys. We do an employee survey and we do a nonprofit partner survey. And that's what I use to show our effectiveness. And even though we may not be the largest funder, we are one of the best corporate funders to those organizations that we work with. And just saying these are the metrics I care about, not the our social return on investment of the $25,000. I have reframed that narrative. Okay. At the same time, I think not only being good at social impact, you have to be just a good business leader. I listen very closely to what is the company talking about, what are they focused on, and how can I demonstrate that I am just as good at that. Of course, the hot topic right now is AI. Okay. CDW is all in AI 360 as a company. Go, 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 go. So, as a leader, I need to show how I am using AI, adopting it, the efficiencies that I'm able to show as my on my team, and what I'm doing in the nonprofit community to support them in their adoption of AI. But that's just being a good CDW leader. That's not necessarily being a good social impact leader. And so, if they're focused on services as a company, right? We want to do more with services. Okay. Well, how can I partner with some of our service providers more in social impact? Right. So always listening, always understanding to what the business itself is focused on and how I can support that. That's one of the reasons local impact program came to be, because there was a huge push on better together and in office and time together. Okay, we'll create a program that supports that huge initiative and push within the company.
You touched on something that I feel like is so important. Not only do you have to be good at social impact, you have to be a business leader. So you have to understand the business. What does the business care about? What are the metrics that the business looks at in terms of success? And I would even go further than that. And you want to understand what metrics and the responsibilities of each executive. What do they care about? I firmly believe that in order for the profession to grow, practitioners need to move away from being perceived as program managers and they want to be perceived as strategic operators. And that kind of gets into that lane of being good business leaders and understanding how to connect the dots between impact and business.
Yes, 100%. And good people leaders. Good people leaders. I am, like I said a while ago, I am so proud of my team. And I have a coworker of the year on my team. And that is the best thing, right? That's because, again, you have to not just be a good social impact leader, you have to be a good people leader and give up the stage, right? Give up the spotlights, give your people the face time. Make sure you know them. Are they growing? Are they going to the social impact conferences? Are they speaking on the panels at the conferences? Because when they succeed, you succeed as a leader too.
Absolutely. Okay, last question for you. If you had to make a prediction about where corporate impact as a profession is going to be in the next, let's say, 5 to 7 years, what would your prediction be?
I still think because this work is about people, it will be around. So I'm very positive on it. This work matters. I still believe nonprofits will exist, philanthropy will exist, and people are going to care. I still think future generations deeply care about meaning and purpose and values done in the right way, authentically. That will continue. Still a trend, still happening. I talked about changing data and changing metrics, um, limited data from employees and more empowerment. I think increased in that unrestricted funding. I really do. And I think what happened in 2025 is there was more scrutiny on where are some dollars going? Are they going to specific demographics, specific programs? And I actually think a positive of that scrutiny is that it will lead to more unrestricted funding for the organization. Because now corporations are a little afraid to be too specific about what they're giving to. And so I think that is a positive. And I think they're going to realize that, hey, it's a little bit easier. I don't have to manage this whole program. And there's a lot behind that. And I think it's better for the nonprofit. So I think that is continuing. And then I think the organizations, nonprofit organizations that are going to thrive are the ones that fully focus on relationships and trust and human interaction. That is what AI cannot change, right? And so, how can you continue to be good partners, getting to know each other, listening, adding value add opportunities that are valuable for both the for profit and nonprofit, and truly, truly focusing on time building the relationships and understanding between organizations.
Taylor, thank you so much for joining me and walking through your career journey and sharing all the great work that you're doing at CDW. I feel like what you've been able to pull off so far at CDW is fantastic, and I feel like more practitioners need to know about it because that you're laying the foundation or the blueprint rather for other practitioners to emulate, and that is just so fantastic. So thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for your leadership in the space as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And my biggest thing too as a practitioner is I am always here to help. I always take the phone calls and happy to help others in this space because we get better by sharing and by doing things together. So thank you again, Jeremy, for having me.
This episode is brought to you by Social Impact World, the intelligence layer for corporate impact. To learn more, go to socialimpactworld.com. I'm Jeremy Brown. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Impact.